US.
The Angel Clark Show. This is the Angel Clark Show. Your trusted source for the liberty impaired.
Coming to you live.
Be part of Angel's Army.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show on radiofreedom.us. Freedom from the FCC. All right, so I have a special treat for all of you this evening. I have on the line with me the YouTube user known as Girl Writes What. And I'm going to refer to her throughout this interview as Girl Writes What, but she's a divorced mother of 3, and she says that she's tired of living in a society that treats men like, jerks, and women like children. She has a blog. She also writes at avoiceformen.com, and she wants anyone who'll start thinking of men as human beings. She wants people to start doing that, and she wants women to collectively grow up. Now, the reason why Girl Writes What is on the show with me this evening is because I had Ben come on from daddyjustice.com, and he was telling me about this situation going on in the family court system where basically men are treated as second-class citizens simply because they aren't the ones that carry children to term. And this whole situation was kind of news to me. This whole situation was just I was kind of in shock. So someone suggested that I get Girl Writes What on to talk about kind of this huge gender gap that I didn't even know was there. So I want to thank you so much for joining me this evening. Basically, I feel like I'm going to be in for a lot of knowledge, to be completely honest.
Oh, there's definitely a lot of stuff that general public just isn't really aware of. But thanks for having me on. I hope I can do the facts justice. So, yeah. Actually, Ben, I've talked to him a few times, and he's his story is just insane. You know, when his ex got out of jail, they gave her 50% custody of the child that they had.
And that's unheard of. They wouldn't do that if it was the other way around. Realistically speaking, it wouldn't work that way.
Custody, even if he had his nose clean and had never been in jail. So
yeah, it's now that was one extreme, but I understand apparently this kind of stuff is happening all over, honestly. This kind of stuff is going on, and I think in many cases women just tune out any kind of news about this stuff because I think we expect to get special treatment.
Oh, it's not just women who tune out. There is a huge. They've done studies, and it seems like study after study after study shows that men have no psychological mechanism to automatically side with other men. And women have a mechanism for that. They will sort of they have an own group preference, an ability to have that, to just sort of we're going to side with the sisterhood at least until they prove that they don't deserve to be sided with. Men don't have that, so this is why you see politicians, male politicians, frequently signing legislation that treats women preferentially to men. And that you can see sometimes female politicians saying, I'm in this to look after women's interests. I'm in this to make sure women get a fair shake. You'd never see a male politician saying that about men. He might say middle-class men or middle-class people or veterans or someone like that, but he would never just say, I want all men to get a fair shake.
You know what?
It doesn't really happen that way.
You're absolutely right about that, and I never would have thought about that until you said it. I mean, honestly, it never clicked in my head that this kind of treatment is happening until you said it, because you're right. There are constantly legislators signing bills that give women more of an upper hand, I think. But what are some examples of that you could point to?
Oh, well, the Violence Against Women Act is the huge one that's just been in the news. I think it just got reauthorized. And I don't know if you recall, but pretty much every politician that was backing that, they framed the argument as in, if you do not support the reauthorization of VAWA, you're a misogynist or you're advocating men's right to beat their wives or whatever. These are all politicians who are well aware that half of all domestic violence is reciprocal. That's men and women beating on each other, that women hit first at least 50% of the time, and that 70% of the unilateral violence in relationships is female perpetrated on men.
Is it really?
So, oh, yeah. For every 40 women who are severely injured through domestic violence, 25 men are.
Wow.
And the law as it is, legislation as it is right now, excludes men from its protections and benefits in something like 60 passages. And it also, it follows the model of, the Duluth model of domestic violence, patriarchal terrorism, which is actually the most rare form of domestic violence out there. Basically, it institutes gender profiling in arrest policy, and it's when in doubt, arrest the man. Even if she hit first, arrest the man, because he could potentially do more damage, because he's heavier and he's stronger and he's taller and all of that. And it really does not. I've read so many papers from domestic violence people who work in the family, who research family violence. And they say that the current models for treatment and for prevention and for all of that, they do a huge disservice to not just male victims, but to entire families, because it ignores, they will not, the Duluth model will not allow batterer treatment programs to say, well, you're an alcoholic, we should get you treatment for that. Oh, well, you're a drug addict, we should get you treatment for that. Oh, well, you have a mental illness, we should get you treatment for that. It focuses entirely on men as batterers and them battering out of a patriarchal need to dominate and control women and subjugate them and keep them down and all of that. So the batterer treatment is basically trying to change the way men feel about women in society.
Can I ask? This might be slightly personal, but why did you start looking into all of this information? What led you down this activism path, basically?
It's actually kind of an interesting little coincidence. I write erotica, and I was a member of some romance and dirty book forums and stuff for authors and reviewers and stuff. And there was this one post that was sort of mocking a post on a website, on a men's website, where the author of this post was complaining that science fiction, hard science fiction, was becoming feminized, that you could not find a hard science fiction movie that didn't have some kind of soap opera-y kind of romance in it. And I went on there to basically tell them, well, you know, frankly, I'm reading through the comments, and you got the one guy saying, well, the new Star Trek, it just kicks butt, and I ripped it off the net and watched it 10 times. Well, why would they make movies for the people who are most likely to steal them?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Why would they make movies that only appeal to you, you guys, the 18 to 34-year-old men, if you're just going to rip them off the internet, right? They're going to make movies that will have your girlfriend dragging you to the theater to pay for them, right?
Yeah.
And if women don't want to watch hard sci-fi without a romance in it or without, you know, soap opera kind of themes, then they're not going to drag you to that movie, and that nobody's going to spend $300 million making a movie that the only people who watch it are the people who refuse to pay for it.
But you know what?
Right?
I have to pause you for a minute. First off, I guess that's great timing for the break to come up, but also because I can't think of any hard science fiction movies that don't have some kind of love story built into it. Hold on. The Angel Clark Show will return. RadioFreedom.us.
Angel Clark.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show on Radio Freedom.us, freedom from the FCC. I have on the line with me the YouTube user known as Girl Writes What, and she also writes at avoiceformen.com. She's got her own blog, and she focuses on some of the discriminations against men in the system. And this is all new to me. This is all news to me, basically. And first off, I want to thank you for sticking through the break with me. But second off, we were talking a little bit about how you got started in this movement, and you were filling me in on the fact that you're an erotica writer, and you were in some forums. You noticed that that there was a post. Someone was saying that there's no sci-fi out there now that doesn't have some deeply embedded love story in it. Or elements in it that really appeal to a female audience. There's very little in the way of a guy movie anymore. Yeah. And when, or even guy books anymore. And when I kind of went there and I thought, this is a really silly complaint, right? Because number one, it's market forces. If they thought that men were going to pay for the entertainment, I guess they want to maximize their profits and balance it out and see how much girl stuff they can inject into a guy movie before guys will refuse to go see it. They did that. It's called Twilight.
I have not seen that or read the books, but
I've
heard a lot about them. So I thought it was a silly complaint. It was kind of petty, and that the guys on this website who are complaining about this, that they were just kind of, I don't know, I kind of thought, like, what a thing to whine about. But when I went in and I read some of the other articles on it, and it was covering things like divorce and child custody and domestic violence and sexual assault and sexual assault law and some of the things that they do on university campuses with the walk a mile in her shoes and the making men walk through lots of clotheslines hanging with T-shirts that, all men are potential rapists and, she's scared of you written on them and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this that's silly to complain about. This is all important stuff. And it seemed to me that on these websites, on these Voice for Men and the Spearhead's a little bit hardcore, and these other men's websites, they will make their claims, they will write their article, and they will list something like, sometimes 15, 20 sources of research papers. So these guys have clearly done their research, and I'm reading some of these papers, and the more I looked into it, the more I thought, like, what planet are we all living on that we think it's women who are oppressed? But it seems like in the most detrimental areas, in the areas of life that can really destroy a person, when it comes to things like homelessness and suicide and incarceration and being victimized by violence and divorce and child custody and access to your kids and all of those things, that women have it pretty good. Women are actually privileged in those areas. Every single social metric of well-being and happiness and health, women far surpass men. Well, life expectancy, access to health care, access to health insurance, safety on the job, suicide rates, I think it is in the 18 to 24 demographic, men are 6 times more likely to commit suicide. And divorced men are actually about 10 times more likely to commit suicide than divorced women.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, because look at it this way, your wife, most divorces are initiated by women for good reason, because they know that they will almost undoubtedly get the kids. They get the kids 85% of the time. And with the kids comes the majority share of the assets, at least half, usually more than half, a huge amount of child support or alimony, usually about as much as a man can possibly afford if he doesn't ever get unemployed or if his job says, oh, well, we're all on part-time for the next 2 months, he's screwed, because they leave him just enough to to live on in a lot of cases, up to a certain income bracket. And so you look at the situation that women have, and most especially emotionally, they have these kids, they have their children with them. And men are, I don't know if I'm going to be able to see my kids. The courts won't enforce access. They will throw a man in jail for being $5,000 in arrears on child support, but she can deny him access to his kids for a year and a half and get 6 warnings from a judge, and nothing's done. So, you look at the situation emotionally, and for many, many women as well, they have a huge support network, right? They have a huge support network of family and friends and sisters and, their mom and all of this. Men have sort of been raised, and they're socialized to their primary social support, their primary emotional support comes from their spouse.
You know what? You are
untie the apron strings. They are supposed to be devoted to her. They are supposed to share their emotions only with her. And then when she's gone, he's looking around and he's like, the last time I talked to anybody else about my feelings was when I was like 14. I don't know what to do now.
You're absolutely right about that. I mean, most men are extremely closed off from discussing their feelings with anyone. In fact, it's extremely uncommon, for instance, to see a man cry on television or in a movies. That's practically unheard of. But to see a woman cry, it's just common. It's common.
Oh yeah, and men don't cry for a very good reason. There's a huge amount of gender enforcement around male behavior. Being a woman, you just have to be a woman, and you have your status as a woman. You have to do something really egregious, extremely out in left field for somebody to say you are not a woman. They might say you're not a real woman or you're not a good woman, but they will not say you are not a woman. And men, they just have to step a little bit out of bounds, and all of a sudden, somebody's revoking their man card.
You know what? I shouldn't laugh because you're right. I mean, even just the fact that there's a phrase that's revoking your man card.
Or be a man.
Yeah.
Be a man.
Yeah. I tell you what, hold on to that thought. The Angel Clark Show will return. Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show on Radio Freedom.us. Freedom from the FCC. I have on the line with me the YouTube user known as Girl Writes What. She's a divorced mother of 3, and she lives in a society that treats men like jerks. And you know what? I have seen this going on around me, but never really paid attention to it. And I'll tell you a little bit, I guess, when it comes to the background for me. I've had people yell at me because I fight for individual rights and individual liberties, and they've said, well, maybe you should start getting more feminist about it and focusing more on women's rights. And my response to that is I'd rather focus on individual rights because everyone deserves the same choices. Everyone deserves to have the same rights. When I fight for individual liberties, it's for everyone, but just on an individual basis. So to me, this is really fascinating because I had no clue that this basically gender warfare was going on, because it's always the women who I see in the media making a fuss about this. It's always the women saying, "Oh, there's a war on women. Women's rights are being taken away. Women's rights are being stripped away, and they need to do this and they need to do that." And apparently there's just been this whole movement that's starting now to focus more on men's rights, because especially in the judicial system, it's interesting to me to see that they really don't have them.
Well, in family court, because you have to make a distinction between family court and criminal court. Family court operates on an entirely different kind of set of rules. If I remember Ben, Daddy Justice, as far as I know, his ex-wife is one of the only women who's ever been convicted of perjury for lying to a family court. Generally, what happens when a woman does what she did, which is make false accusations of domestic violence or sexual abuse or rape or something like that, then the father's cut off from the children immediately, and restraining orders put in place. He can't go near his family, can't go near his house. Often the police will give him 5 minutes to get as much stuff out of the house as he can. He may not have his documents that he needs in order to have a lawyer represent him. That temporary restraining order generally is handed out after 3 minutes of consideration by a judge, ex parte, so there's no hearing. The woman goes to the police. All she has to do is say, "I'm scared of him. I think he might hurt me." And a judge will consider issuing that order, and the first that the man might hear of this is when the police show up to tell him he can't go in his own house. So you have these sort of criminal sanctions placed on men without a hearing, without any kind of notification, sometimes without charges, and then when the family court investigates the allegations, it can take a year and a half for him to be declared innocent. And in that year and a half, he has not seen his children. He might have seen them 15 to 20 minutes every week with a social worker present or something like that. And all of that time, of course, a woman who makes false allegations like this, she's not going to be limited to doing that. She's going to be alienating the children from him, filling their heads.
She's going to be sending all kinds of disinformation their way about their dad is this, their dad is that.
Yeah. So then the judge looks at it, and even if the judge knows that she lied and knows that she maliciously lied, and may even say it's deplorable what you've done and it's the equivalent of child abuse, you get the kids because I can't give them to a man that they're scared of, and they don't even know him. And so you get custody of the kids, and if we put criminal sanctions on you for lying, the children will suffer. And if we don't give you half the assets, the children will suffer. And if we don't give you alimony and child support, the children will suffer. So you get all that too.
You're absolutely right. I can think of very few situations where the judge does not instantly side with the woman based on the fact that she is the woman. And I'm sure that there have been cases where women are making this up simply so that they do end up with control of the kids. So they'll say, I'm physically afraid of him because she knows as a woman she's going to end up with the children.
Oh yeah. This is why women are more likely to initiate a divorce, is because they know that they can divorce and be better off for it. They can divorce and benefit from it. Whereas men rarely will benefit to the same degree if they initiate a divorce. So men generally wait until things are really unbearable. I think 66 to 70% of divorces are initiated by women. 20% more of those other divorces are initiated by a man just kind of going, I can't stand this anymore. She's being intolerable. She's beating me, or she's cheating on me, or whatever, right? Where a woman will misbehave until he files for divorce. So very, very few divorces are just a man going, look, I don't want to be married anymore. See you later, toots. It's really 90% of them are instigated by either a decision on the woman's part or behavior on the woman's part. So you look at those numbers. Of course, women wouldn't be doing this if they were penalized for it, if they knew that they were going to be penalized for it, if they knew that they'd be on their own with no alimony or child support, if they knew that they had stood a chance of losing their children. If they knew all of that, if they suspected all of that, they would not be so quick to divorce. And what's really crazy is the majority of cases where women file for divorce, the reason that they give is dissatisfaction. So it's not even that
Yeah.
he's abusive or he cheats or he's really horrible. They're just not 100% content and think they might be happier elsewhere. So...
You know, I'm sitting back and I'm hearing all this, and you know, my parents divorced relatively early, and I'm trying to think back to my parents' divorce, and you know, I remember numerous times my mom and my dad actually never went to court, because my mom would say to my dad, she would say things like, you know what will happen if I take you to court? Like, I'll get this and I'll get that and I'll get this. And my mom, I love her, she's amazing, but she used that kind of stuff as leverage over my dad.
Oh yeah.
So it's just
often,
kind of, sorry, go ahead.
Often what happens too is that you'll have a woman taking an ex-wife taking her ex-husband to court to get the child support increased, or to get access reduced, or to change this or to change that, or she wants more of the assets, or she, you know, I have a brother-in-law who's going through this right now. He's actually technically not divorced yet from his previous marriage.
Well, hold on to this thought. The Angel Clark Show will return in just a moment, and we'll finish up here with Girl Writes What? Radio Freedom.
This is the Angel Clark Show.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show on radiofreedom.us. Freedom from the FCC. This segment of the Angel Clark Show has been sponsored by a friend of the Angel Clark Show. Yes, that's right. A friend of the Angel Clark Show has responded to the call and is doing what they can do to help promote liberty through our listeners. You can do the same. All you have to do is go to the website, radiofreedom.us. If you click on the chat rooms button, we accept PayPal right there. We also accept Bitcoins. You can go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Angel Clark Show. You can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @SussexAngelC. You know, I'm on YouTube. My YouTube handle is Sussex County Angel, but my hits are nowhere near my current guest. Girl Writes What is on the line with me, and her YouTube channel is just it's popping. I mean, seriously, there's so much action going on there, and to be completely honest, I think that a lot of it has been recent. She just kind of popped up from what I'm seeing. She popped up and relatively quickly has started making headlines and becoming an internet sensation with these videos where she kind of exposes the truth and lets people see what's going on with the system and the fight against men. I mean, to be honest, I'm amazed by some of the information that you've got for me. I want to thank you for sticking around, by the way. I really appreciate it.
I mean, I do like to talk. So,
right.
You know, I'm female, at least in that respect, so...
I know what you mean. Look, when no one else could hear us, I was telling her I don't really consider myself to be the usual woman. I don't really get along with most women too well. But I'm really enjoying this discussion. I think in large part because this is something that most women, I think, will skip right past and kind of take for granted. I think that a lot of women take for granted this bonus that they'll be given in the judicial system when it comes to family court and things along those lines, and don't even realize it. In fact, you told me some relatively alarming information about the difference between men and women in the court system.
In the criminal courts, there's definitely a huge difference between how men are treated and how women are treated. If you think the prosecution will go more gently on someone because they're white rather than black, it's even more so as far as women and men. Women tend to, for the exact same crime, they'll be charged with a lesser crime compared to a man. They will be convicted. They're more likely to be convicted of an even lesser crime than a man would. The sentencing disparity is just insane. For women, it's about 18 and a half months. For men, for similar crimes, up to 51 and a half months. So, you know, you're looking at a huge gap there. And,
really.
And it's bigger than any racial gap out there. The difference bigger than the difference between whites and any other minority is the difference between how women are sentenced and how men are sentenced.
You know what just popped into my head? If Casey Anthony had been a man.
Oh, he probably wouldn't have lived long enough to go to trial. Well,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say probably, but it's altogether possible. You look at the way there was one woman. She drove her van with all of her children in it into a lake. Not maybe about 6 months ago, something like that. And the 10-year-old managed to get out of his seatbelt and out a window and swim to safety, and all of the other children died with her. And the initial news coverage of it was that she was in a bitter custody dispute with her ex, and she was obviously, all of the speculations, because they can't speculate, the reporter can't speculate themselves, but all of the speculations from people that were interviewed were that she was obviously protecting her children from some kind of malevolence on the part of her ex. There was no assumption by anyone that maybe he was seeking custody to protect them from an unstable and violent woman. And all of the comments from neighbors and oh, well, she was a good mother, but she needed more help. She was a good mother, but she slipped through the cracks. Society should have helped her more. And if it had been a man who did that, there would have been, if he hadn't died in the van with his kids, there would have been calls for a lynching.
Yeah.
And I would have to say rightly so. I mean, there's really no excuse for that kind of behavior, but we tend to happily excuse women. We just assume that they're not acting on a motivation or anything that originates in themselves. They're always reacting to something. They're reacting to fear from, I'm reacting to the fear of my ex getting custody, or my ex beating my kids, or I'm reacting to this societal oppression, or I'm reacting to whatever, and therefore I'm not wholly culpable for my actions.
You're absolutely right, and I guess to me it's alarming to see of so many situations where people don't take responsibility for their actions based on their gender. Now, tell me, for my listeners out there, some of them may not have heard of this kind of thing before. Is there any action that you think they should take, and is there anywhere that you think they should go to kind of keep up with this kind of stuff?
Well, I think I'm a member of a forum on Reddit, which is a large sort of news sharing website, and it's called Our Men's Rights, and all one word, all lowercase. There are a few false flag subreddits. We have some trolls who go around saying,
we all have trolls.
I'm from Our Men's Rights. We're trying to legalize rape, stuff like that. Which is, they say that we're horrible, but they have to go and do that, right?
Yeah.
To make people think that we're horrible, then stay away, because what if they showed up and actually saw that there were issues, I guess. I don't know. But if we were as horrible as these people seem to think that we are, then they wouldn't have to do that. But you can go there. There's a lot of articles, research papers, news stories, all kinds of stuff, and discussions about them there. There's a voice for men. There's the National Coalition for Men is a men's national men's organization, and they do a lot of advocacy and sort of the groundwork and the legwork and stuff like that. And so if you want to get involved, Fathers for Family, Fathers for Justice, there's a whole slew of organizations out there and websites that have these deal with these kinds of issues. It's just extremely difficult for them to get traction in the mainstream without being called misogynists.
Yeah, well, as I said, all of this was just kind of news to me, and I really want to thank whoever it was out there who told me to look for you online, because I just got this random comment on my blog that was like, you should find this person if this was news to you, and there's this video of you, and I was like, holy crap.
I don't know. I guess I'm really amazed at how popular my channel has become since I started. I've only been on for maybe 6-7 months, something like that, maybe 8. And I remember one day somebody posted one of my videos in a very large forum, and I managed to snag 1,000 new subscribers in 24 hours, which was just insane.
Nice.
So, it just really is, I think, and I have a lot of men emailing me and saying, thank you so much for doing this. This is probably the first time in a decade that I haven't felt like I need to apologize for being a man.
You're absolutely right, and it's really refreshing to see someone out there fighting for this. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I want to thank you for waking me up to this that's going on. And please reach out to me anytime you have any news, any new information going on. Her YouTube channel is Girl Writes What. Please check her out. The Angel Clark Show will return tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Until that time, remember, no army can stop an idea whose time is up.
We live in an era of permanent warfare. America currently has soldiers and Marines deployed in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan,